Great. Well, it was his final salute. Thousands of police officers, their family, their friends, all gathering at a Long Island church to remember a fallen hero, New York City police officer Brian Moore. He died Monday after being shot in the head while on duty last weekend in Queens. It was a sea of blue on Friday by the thousands. The commissioner, Bill Bratton, the commissioner of the NYPD, calling him a cop's cop who was devoted to his job.
Once more, we find ourselves together in mourning. It is too soon since the last time, much too soon. The Moore family is an NYPD family, and I know they felt the double blow in December, as all of us did. This today is too soon. We need more like him. To all of you in blue here for him today, we all need to be more like him. Because Brian's death comes at a time of great challenge in this country, for police officers across the country. We are increasingly bearing the brunt of loud criticism. We cannot be defined by that criticism.
We all are heartbroken, as are the people of our city. Brian Moore dedicated his life to protecting all of us. He gave what President Abraham Lincoln called the last full measure of devotion to that cause. Brian Moore represented the best of New York City. He was brave, for sure, but his bravery was matched by his compassion. And he came by it through his family. It's in his DNA, from a family so devoted to the NYPD. His father and uncle, both retired sergeants. May God bless Officer Moore and all who loved him.
A real loss for the city, New York City, a fallen police officer at just 25 years old, Brian Moore. It's moments like those that some say we have not seen enough of on television or on the front page of newspapers. One voice in that group, Milwaukee Sheriff David Clarke. He joins me now. Thank you for being with me.
My pleasure, Poppy.
You've been very critical of the media coverage of deaths of unarmed black men like Freddie Gray, like Michael Brown, versus how much time has been spent, you say, on covering fallen police officers like Brian Moore. What are you seeing, and what do you think should change?
Well, I'll tell you what's important in how you open that story. Thanks for the tribute, by the way. My prayers continue to be with the family of Officer Brian Moore and Commissioner Bratton and my colleagues at NYPD during this very difficult time period. But you pointed out that Officer Moore was shot in the head by a suspect, but you didn't say that the perpetrator was a black suspect. Yet every time a white officer kills a black man in the United States of America, the media is so quick to point out the race, but we don't do it here. We know for a fact, statistically anyway, 40% of officers killed in the line of duty are shot by black suspects. So if we want some balance here, I think if we're going to use race, then we have to use it all the time. Otherwise, we shouldn't use it.
So that begs the question, should we use it? When we talk about stories like this, should we say an unarmed black man or a white officer or a black officer and an unarmed white man? Should we use race?
Well, that's up to you. I don't want to get into telling the media what they should do. However, I'm just saying I'm looking for consistency.
Sir, I mean the American public. Should that be part of the conversation?
Well, it's going to be, unfortunately, because race is an explosive issue in our society, okay? And there are certain people who, and entities that want to keep that animosity going. So that's what we're going to have to deal with. That's the reality of it. I just want consistency on both sides. Either way, if we're going to point it out, and if certain people are going to point it out, that it's a white officer on a black suspect, then when it's the reverse, I want it to be pointed out as well.
So One of the questions that we've had a lot through this, that I've certainly had, is why are there not more central databases with all of this information? There is a central law enforcement database that tells us how many police officers have been killed in the line of duty, right? It was 117 in 2014. What we don't know is how many police officers across the country have been involved in excessive force used on civilians or officer-involved shootings of civilians. There's no central database for that. Do you think that there should be?
Not necessarily. I mean, each state keeps that stuff. It might be a little more tedious to collect it right now, but it's collectible. And if somebody wants to come up with a database, I'm not going to fight that. It's going to involve a lot of money that all of a sudden nobody's going to want to put up. So, you know, I'm all for it, but that's not what the problem is at this point in time, that we don't have a database in terms of officer behavior and officer activity.
So earlier this week, the brand new U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch went to Baltimore, as you know, and met with the family of Freddie Gray. They launched the DOJ investigation into the Baltimore Police Department. You said, look, she should be meeting with the family of Brian Moore, this fallen NYPD officer, as well.
Yes, I did say that, and yes, she should. Look, she's got a tough job. I like the fact that she reached out to Baltimore's finest as well when she visited Baltimore, Maryland, along with the family. That's the right way to do it. And I know she needs time. These things happen simultaneously in Baltimore, and then the tragic incident with Officer Moore. But still, there's still time. It's never too late to go and visit with the family. I saw the pain, the grief, the suffering of Officer Moore's father and other family members yesterday at their funeral. It just broke my heart. But I'll tell you what, right now, that this investigation with the Baltimore PD is a fraud. Just 2 months ago, Baltimore Police Department was held up by President Obama as a model police agency in terms of best practices and community-based approach to policing. And now 2 months later, they're thrown under the bus by Mayor Rawlings Blake for political expediency. You can't go in 60 days from being a model agency to now being an agency with a lot of red flags in terms of questionable pattern and practices. And they go from being a model agency to now being a rabid racist bunch of ogres. The two things are mutually exclusive. Something's wrong here, and I wish that the mainstream media would do a better job of pointing out these inconsistencies. This was politically expedient for her to throw the Baltimore Police Department under the bus when 2 months ago she sat on the panel taking a bow about how great her police agency is, and I believe that it is a great agency.
Let me point out a few things for our viewers. One of those is that the union representing the police officers, as you know, yesterday came out and asked for the DOJ to also look into the mayor. Secondly, I will say that this is a police department that their own head of the police has said there have been problems. We're working to fix them, and they've paid more than $5 million in settlements for excessive force claims. That said, I want you to listen to what New York City Police Department Commissioner Bill Bratton had to say about his fallen officer, Brian Moore.
What is lost in the shouting and the rhetoric is the context of what we do. A handful of recent incidents, fewer than a dozen, have wrongfully come to define the hundreds of millions of interactions cops have every year.
So what needs to change, Sheriff Clarke, to make sure that cops' lives, as you say, are seen in the same light in the media coverage by the public? What needs to change so that what Bill Bratton is addressing happens?
I think what would be very helpful in this is for the mainstream media to stop carrying this false narrative put out there by cop haters about the, slamming the character, the integrity, the reputation of our community's finest. I think that would go a long way, because without the mainstream media carrying that false narrative, not many people are going to hear it.
Sheriff Clarke, I always appreciate you coming on this program, giving us straight talk. It's good to have you on, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Poppy.